Good morning and welcome to the Home Battery Scheme Industry Forum. I hope you're all in the right place. My name is Melissa Muller and I work for the Energy Implementation team in the Department for Energy and Mining, the team that is working on delivering the Home Battery Scheme. Welcome to our Chief Executive, Dr. Paul Hethersay. Thank you for coming along to support us all today. And Sam Crafter, who will be talking in a moment, our Executive Director of the Energy Implementation team, and also our the remainder of our team. Firstly, I would like to, on behalf of the department, acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Our first speaker today is Sam Crafter, the Executive Director of the Energy Implementation team. So Sam will be providing you with an overview of the Home Battery Scheme, and we'll hear more about the details from our guest speakers. So I welcome Sam.
Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you very much for investing your time with us this morning to enable us to run you through where we're headed with the Home Battery Scheme. So just a quick run through of the speakers. So we've tried today to make the session as focused and useful for the audience that we have. So I'll give a general run through on the program and then we'll run through a various number of the speakers that are involved in the program, talking about the technical specifications that we're looking at for the batteries, talking about the interaction with the platform that customers are going to use and how that's going to work for providers and the qualification process for providers. We've got the Clean Energy Council here. And we'll also talk about the priority period for local manufacturing. We've got Ian Nightingale, the industry advocate, with us today as well, who's going to lead that discussion. And then when we come to the panel, we've also got Bryn Williams here from SAPN, who's going to join us, so we can have that to answer your questions as best as we can. So just a quick overview. I think most of you are across this, but the target that we have and the commitment that the government made in March was for 40,000 South Australian households to have a battery system provided. There's $100 million in state government subsidies to do that. We've also been able to work closely with the CEFC, and we've got representatives here from them today as well, to bolster that up with some financing and an initial investment from them of $100 million to support loans for people and customers who are looking to either fill the gap in the cost or also who are looking to use that finance to get solar if they don't have solar. And we have a target to be up and away in October. Now, just the objectives of the scheme are obviously to reduce the power prices for 40,000 households, but in doing that to also reduce the demand on the network, especially during peak periods, and in turn an impact in lowering prices for all South Australians. That's obviously a very high priority of the government, and this is one of the key programs that they're putting in place to achieve that. Before we get into more of the details of the program, a big focus for our team in all the projects that we work on, so our division in government looks after all of the energy implementation for the energy plan, the previous energy plan. We're also doing the grid scale solar work. We've done the work on the emergency generators, the Helensdale Power Reserve. So all of those things have worked with us. So safety has been a very big priority for us. I'm sure it's a very big priority for all of you and your businesses. So I'm just going to take a minute or two to talk about the sort of safety elements of the program and how important that is for us. So obviously safe delivery of the home battery scheme is a non-negotiable objective for us. And what we really are committed to trying to do is work with you in partnership to make sure that we achieve a leading practice safety outcomes. So that's for installers, for customers, and for the broader community. So if we look at just a couple of things that are important, critical risk is really what we're talking about today. So critical risks are really related to installing and commissioning. They must be either eliminated or effectively managed by all of the people involved in the program. So we very much take our responsibility in that very seriously. And obviously there are comparisons pretty regularly with programs that haven't gone so well. Normally the federal government's pink bats program. So we are very, very clear and aware of how that wasn't managed well from a government perspective when it was implemented, and have taken on board those learnings. But what we're also very keen is to make sure that everyone's really clear about that importance up front here today. And critical risks, circumstances or situation where someone is very seriously or fatally injured at work. So that's what we're talking about eliminating here. This slide is interesting for me. Last year there was 191 people that died at work in Australia. There was about, 14 of those fatalities occurred here in South Australia. When you look at the projects we're going to be delivering, the two most relevant things from my perspective are falls from height and being hit by falling objects. If you think about that, that's 23% of those fatalities. So 191 is about 2/3 of this room that didn't go home from work last year, and 23% of those were by injuries that are directly relevant to what we're going to be doing together over the next year, 18 months, 2 years, even 4 or 5 years potentially. So I think it is very important that we put a clear focus on getting that right. What are the risks that we're looking at? Predominantly falling from roofs while installing solar roof panels. I mean, these are things you're conscious and aware of. I'm not trying to tell you anything you don't know. I'm just trying to make sure that we put a highlight and a focus on it up front. Contact with live electrical wiring or components during installation or commissioning is a huge risk. So, and obviously, if they're not effectively controlled, someone could be seriously injured or worse. So, what we're looking at to put in place some of the systems around this, and I guess that's a bit of the background to why we're looking to have installers that we've got a CEC accreditation. System providers will need to agree to key safety control measures. We'll be doing unannounced safety compliance inspections during the installation phase, and the inspection frequency will be worked around risk of projects, past performance. So we'll have an active involvement in the safety management of the program. We'll also obviously report that through to CEC. And obviously, we will reserve the right to suspend system providers from the scheme if there's issues around safety. It's a very high priority for us and for the government. So if we move through now to who's eligible to receive the subsidy. So anyone who owns or occupies a home in South Australia is eligible. So renters are eligible to apply. They just obviously have to have the permission from the property owner. So we're not expecting there'll be a huge influx, but we're definitely not precluding people that are in a rental property. The SA Energy concession holders will receive a higher subsidy, and we'll talk about those numbers in a minute. And it'll be one subsidy per home, or one per NIMI, as you would all talk about regularly. So the commitment around means testing was made by the government, and the best way a state government can do that, it's very difficult for a state government to run a means testing program. The levers sit very much with the federal government, so the most sensible way for us to apply that was to existing energy concession holders. So the subsidy, the headline figures, I'm sure you're across. It's we've applied it at $500 per kilowatt hour for households, $600 per kilowatt hour for energy concession holders. It's scaled in line with the size of the battery. The bigger the battery, bigger the subsidy, and we're capped it at $6,000 per system. Now we've set that at the higher or more aggressive end, if you like, of the program to get people involved and interested early. We do expect that over time we'll have to manage that subsidy, and probably it'll be coming down, not increasing. Now it depends on how the program runs, of course, but the target is 40,000. If you do the maths at those rates, we're not going to hit that target. So over time we think we'll get some more competition in place. We hope and are confident the battery price will come down as well. But to enable us to do that, then we'll be looking to probably bring those down over time to hit that 40,000 target. I'm moving through reasonably quickly. There's a lot of information today, and a lot more detail will come with the following speakers around elements of this, and then we've got the Q&A session, so I'll keep us going. So here's just a schematic, a worked example. These are just 3 products out of many. We're not saying by any means that these are the 3 products in the mix, but we've gathered that from the market information that we had and just worked through how the subsidy would apply to a large battery, a medium battery, and a small battery. If you look through that up there quickly, it shows you the subsidy amount. It'll show you the post-subsidy indicative cost, which comes to then how the customer looks to fix that cost. We'll talk a bit more about that in detail as well. Again, we're just sort of talking here through, if you're looking for a large battery, then you're more likely to be in the space of a $5,000 or $6,000 subsidy. A smaller battery is sort of in that $2,500 to $3,000 range, depending on whether you're a concession holder or not. And we're looking at and worked at around a payback period of around 6 years, and we think that equates to savings thousands of dollars over the life of that battery for consumers. So households accessing the scheme. So we've got a session today with Andrew from RateSetter, who will talk through exactly how this will work in much more detail. But what we've worked with is worked with the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and RateSetter, who are going to provide the platform for us to be able to do this, so that what we're looking for is a seamless experience as possible for customers, so that they are able to come through, get information about the products, trigger a conversation with providers to be able to get a quote. Once they've got a quote, they're then able to approve the quote that they're looking to accept, and that will then proceed through to enable the installation to occur. Payment will occur to the provider once the installation is verified as having been by the customer as being installed and working and up and running. So their customers will need to consider their suitability. We're also going to be quite clear in our website that batteries aren't for everyone. We don't want to drive people to getting a suboptimal outcome around their energy situation just because they are keen on having a battery because there's a subsidy available. So we're being quite trying to provide a bit of a check-in point for people up front, so that they actually have a look at their circumstances and make a decision, or go and find some more information about their situation before they sign on to the program. Obviously, we've got they'll be then able to go through and find system providers, eligible systems, and then access the subsidy through that platform. So around the finance, so in addition to the subsidies, we've got a finance product that the Clean Energy Finance Corporation have invested in that will be also managed through that same single platform. People will have a choice how they want to fix up for the remainder between the subsidy and the cost of the battery system. Or indeed, if they want to engage in getting solar and the battery, they'll be able to access the loan for the solar portion as well. The subsidy will go towards the battery, but they are able to get finance support for the solar part. It's entirely up to households and customers. So they may choose not to borrow anything. They may choose to pay directly. They may choose to find another, they have their own financing arrangements in place, all those sort of things that people have choice of. So we're not insisting on people using finance, but we're providing an option for people. We realise that the subsidy in itself was not going to be able to help everybody to be able to meet the cost of the system. So what we've looked to do is to provide a competitive financial offer, which obviously has come with the assistance of the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, but to do it through that single platform to make it as easy as possible for customers. So the loan terms we talked about are between 3 to 7 years. Obviously, again, that's a customer choice about how long they want to have their loan arrangements in place for the paybacks, etc., that are required. So what products? So we've got some equipment eligibility criteria, and Ben is going to talk us through that shortly and how we've sort of come to that list there. Really, system providers, so there will be some criteria around that. We're looking to ensure that the equipment we're putting in is smart equipment that can work with the network, that can work in a VPP style going forward. So we don't want people buying equipment that might be good now but not usable in the future. So there's also a priority that will be given in the first 9 weeks of the scheme to batteries that are manufactured or assembled in South Australia. So we've got an existing product register that Ian will talk to around assembly and manufacture and what they mean. But the government's made it really clear that part of the objective of the program is to try and drive more activity in that space in South Australia. And so that's what we're looking for in that priority period. And we've been very encouraged with what we've seen. So, obviously we've seen a commitment from Sonnen, and they'll have to go through the application process like everyone else, but you would think they would meet that if they're getting up and running with their facility in November. We've also had a number of conversations in the last couple of weeks since the announcement with other battery manufacturers that are looking to be able to move here or establish further here to be able to meet that requirement. So that's encouraging from our perspective. So again, I'll leave the detail of this to Ben, but obviously safe products is very important in line with the earlier part of our conversation. Reliable, so we need quality installation of products and after-service support, and VPP, virtual power plant capable. So power security on the network, bringing loads down in peak times, bringing costs of power down is important as part of this process. So all of the supporting documents around this and this presentation in its entirety will be up on the website today as well. So we're making this available to you, including the bits that come through from the other presenters. Okay, so how's it going to work? How can people become a system provider? What we're looking for, and the reason we've used system provider is quite deliberate. We're looking for someone who can provide the entire customer experience. So what we're looking for is someone who can manage the process. So that could be an installer who manages the procurement of the battery product, the installation and the service the whole way through. It could be a battery manufacturer who partners with installers but takes on the responsibility of that customer experience. It could be a retail company, energy retailer that looks to engage with the battery manufacturer and the installer and provide that product. So there's a range of people that could qualify as system providers, and then obviously as well, each of the system providers will need a workforce of installers. So there's a couple of pathways that people can be involved. We want to have a system provider who's responsible for that experience for the customer, but that also means that there's going to be a lot of work for people that may just want to install and partner up with the appropriate providers and work with them in partnership as an installer. And what we're looking to do is to try and make that process easy for people as well as we move through this. So registering your interest on our website, which I'm sure you'll have because you're here, but there'll be a notification next week we're targeting when the eligible equipment application process is open. So we want to keep that moving and get that moving quickly so that people can start to get qualified and in the system and ready to go.